The envelope didn't have a name, but it had mine inside. No return address, no stamp. Just white. Heavy. Quiet. At first, I thought someone left it by mistake. Maybe a neighbor. Maybe church mail gone astray. But when I opened it, it read like an obituary. Full name, birth date, condolences. It said I had passed, and for a moment, my hands stopped moving, because everything in that letter was true. Except that I was still standing there, still breathing, still checking the porch light twice before bed, still waiting for Sunday to feel like Sunday. I looked down again. It was my address. It had always been. So someone knew where I lived. They just didn't want me living. Have you ever been removed, not forgotten? Erased, not because you disappeared, but because someone needed your absence more than your presence? This is what it feels like to open a letter and find your own death written neatly in ink while your heart still taps against your ribs asking to be heard. If you felt that kind of silence, stay with me, sweetheart. Patrick came into our lives with pressed collars and polite silences. He worked in insurance. "Risk management," he said once with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Lindsay looked up at him like he'd hung the moon. I tried not to interfere. I knew how it felt when a mother-in-law spoke too much. But still, I watched. He was always trimming, reducing, smoothing things down. After Harold passed, Patrick offered to help Lindsay sort through the paperwork. "Too much for you right now," he told me. "Let us take care of the logistics." I didn't argue. Grief fogs the mind, and I thought he meant well. Soon after, the mail slowed. The church stopped sending bulletins. My Meals on Wheels schedule disappeared. I wasn't called to bake or visit shut-ins like I used to. When I asked about it at the church office, the receptionist frowned and said gently, "We heard you were no longer with us, ma'am." I blinked. "I'm here every Sunday?" "Oh, I'm sorry. I suppose something got mixed up." But nothing was mixed up. It was being managed. Patrick had started forwarding family mail to their house. I found out by accident. My health provider left a voicemail saying I'd missed an appointment I never knew about. When I called Lindsay, she brushed it off. "Patrick's just organizing things, making it easier." For whom? One Friday, I baked banana bread and walked the 2 miles to their house. I hadn't been invited, but I missed them. I stood outside the front door, clutching the warm, foil-wrapped loaf. Through the window, I could hear voices, Ellie's giggle, Lindsay humming. I rang the bell once, then again, and then I stood there. Nobody came. Inside, the laughter continued. A world I once belonged to, just on the other side of the glass. I left the bread on the porch. No note. Later that night, Patrick texted, "Please don't drop by unannounced. Lindsay needs rest. It's been a stressful time." No greeting, no thank you. Just a line, like a gate slammed shut. That was the first time I felt erased. Not forgotten. Removed. One afternoon at a family gathering, I was still invited back then. Patrick made a joke at the table. Something about how the past always finds a way to meddle. He didn't look at me, but the message landed. And I remembered another moment. The day I asked about Harold's will. He had left a small life insurance policy. Nothing big, but enough to help Ellie someday. Patrick's face tightened. "That's not your concern," he said. "Let's not stir up old paperwork. It's just noise now." Noise. That's what I had become. Not a mother, not a grandmother. Just static. And what hurt most wasn't his silence. It was Lindsay's. She didn't ask why I stopped coming, why I didn't call as often. Maybe she thought I was fading, or maybe she believed I should. I still cooked like someone was coming over. Not on purpose, just out of habit. I'd boil water for 2 cups of tea, slice 2 pieces of toast, lay out 2 napkins, then stand there, looking at the second place like it was a stranger. One afternoon, I reached for 2 puddings from the fridge and stopped. There was only me. The other pudding stayed sealed. I closed the fridge slowly, like I'd almost revealed something shameful. The kitchen had grown quieter. Not empty, just hushed. Like a room waiting for footsteps that never came. I talked more, out loud, about little things. This spoon's chipped again. We're out of cinnamon. Don't forget the laundry. Sometimes, I answered myself. I left the TV on just for the sound. Let it mumble to me from the corner. It didn't matter what was playing. Anything was better than the hum of quiet. One evening, I pulled out an old drawing Ellie made. Bright purple sun, stick figures holding hands, a label under mine that said, Grandma. It had fallen behind the shelf last year. I taped it back on the fridge, right at eye level. But the next morning, when I opened the door for milk, the tape peeled loose. The paper fluttered to the floor, face down. I left it there all day. Later, I picked it up, smoothed the crease, and pressed it back into place. Right next to the magnet that read, Love Never Forgets. There was still a napkin on Ellie's old chair. The one she used for apple slices and storybooks. I never moved it. Sometimes I'd sit at the table, facing that chair, and speak as if she were still across from me. She'd be in 3rd grade now? I whispered once. Probably taller than me. I didn't cry often, but that day something cracked. Not loudly, not with sobs. It came out like a breath I had held for too long. Later, I checked my voicemail. A message from some company confirming a cancellation. If the deceased is no longer a client, I didn't even finish listening. I just pressed delete and sat there, very still, very small. I used to drive 6 hours for Ellie's school recital. Brought costumes, packed oranges, clapped like a fool even when she forgot her lines. Now, I was forgotten before the play even began. I didn't know if Lindsay believed I had faded or if she helped it happen. Maybe she thought I talked too much, warned too often. Maybe I made her feel like she was failing as a mother. I never meant to. But maybe I did. Maybe that's why she didn't fight for me. Maybe that's why she let me go. And if that was true, then maybe I deserved the silence. That's what hurt the most. Not just being forgotten, but believing you earned it. It was the envelope that made me pause. No name, no return address, just resting inside the mailbox like it belonged there. I almost tossed it. Junk mail, I thought. But something about the way it sat, like it was waiting for me, made me open it. Inside was a sympathy card. Soft white lilies on the front. Inside, cursive handwriting, perfectly centered. We are sorry for your loss. With deepest sympathy to the family of Mrs. Emily Warren. My hands stopped moving. That was my name. I blinked at the words, not quite understanding. Was this for someone else? Was there another Emily Warren? But the address matched. The envelope had come to my door. I set it down on the kitchen table and stared at it like it might explain itself. It didn't. I picked it up again, read the words out loud. We are sorry for your loss. The kitchen chair creaked beneath me as I sat. A breeze from the cracked window made the card tremble slightly. I reached for the phone to call Lindsay, then stopped. We hadn't spoken in months. Not since Christmas. And even then, Patrick had answered first. Told me she was unavailable. Maybe it was a prank, a mistake, or maybe I was losing it. The next morning, I walked to St. Agnes Church. My knees protested every step, but I needed to see familiar walls. I needed to know I still existed. Inside, nothing had changed, and everything had. The bulletin board near the entrance was new. A memorial display. Candles, flowers, photos. I stepped closer, and there it was. A black and white photo of me from years ago, cropped from a parish picnic. Below it, a note in gold ink. In loving memory of Emily Warren. Faithful servant, beloved friend, returned to the Lord. I couldn't breathe. A woman walked past me. She glanced at the board, then at my face, and then she kept walking. No double take, no gasp, just a polite nod, like I was any other stranger. I moved toward the pews, but stopped myself. My legs wouldn't carry me forward. I left, quietly. Like a ghost. Back home, I tore through drawers. In the one by the window, beneath old coupons and birthday cards, I found it, a folded flyer from the church. I must have received it last week and never opened it. Inside was a printed memorial program. Hymns listed, a passage from Psalms. My name printed neatly beneath the heading, Memorial Service, February 8th, no surviving relatives. No surviving relatives. I dropped the paper. It floated to the floor like it had no weight at all. I walked to the window and stared out, watching the neighbor's dog sniff the sidewalk. I pressed a palm to the glass. What if I had died and no one noticed? I thought of Ellie, my granddaughter. Did she think Grandma had gone to heaven? Had she been told anything at all? I sat on the couch and closed my eyes, and for the first time, I wondered, was I forgetting things? Had I confused dates, lost track of time? But then I remembered Patrick's words, sharp as a blade, from that tense dinner years ago. "You always think you know best," he said, gripping his glass tight. "Maybe it's time you stopped showing up." He hadn't meant it kindly. Later, when I brought up Harold's will, Patrick shut me down fast. "That's ancient history. You don't need to be involved." Back then, I thought he was just angry. Now I saw it. He had erased me, not just from family photos or mailing lists, from life. And somehow, no one noticed. Or worse, maybe they agreed. I walked to the closet and pulled out the old file box Harold had left me. I hadn't opened it in years. Inside was a yellowed business card. Mr. Jennings, elder law attorney, Uptown office. I picked up the phone. He answered on the second ring. When I said my name, there was a pause. "I thought," he began, then caught himself. "Well, Emily, it's been a long time." I told him everything, not in anger, just in truth. About the sympathy card, the church board, the program, about how my name had been turned into a memory without my consent. He listened, then said something I'll never forget. "They tried to take your presence, your story, but you're the only one who can take it back." That night, I sat at the table with a cup of tea, hands wrapped around the warmth. The wind outside whispered against the window. I lit a candle, not for mourning, but for return. And I wrote a letter, not to Lindsay, not yet, to the church, to the people who had prayed for my soul without realizing it still walked among them. I wrote with grace, but also with clarity. I am not gone, I wrote. I am still here, and I was never alone in that pew. I signed it, Emily Warren. Still here, still breathing, still real. And this time, the story was mine. I didn't write to Lindsay. I didn't call. I didn't ask who first said I was gone. Instead, I called Mr. Jennings. He was older now, slower to move, but his eyes still held their sharpness. I heard about, well, what they said, he murmured, but I knew it wasn't true. I nodded. I just want my name to exist somewhere they didn't erase it. I gave him the folder I had kept beneath my bed. Inside, my birth certificate, a copy of Harold's will, and a letter I had written the night before. It wasn't about money. It was about proof. 2 weeks later, the church newsletter arrived. Near the back, beneath announcements and bake sales, a small line. A scholarship has been established in honor of Emily Warren. No fanfare, no photo, just my name, alive, on paper. I didn't sign it. Let them wonder. A week later, I walked into the church office with a small brass plaque in my purse. The secretary looked up as I approached. Her eyes widened slightly. You're Emily Warren? Yes. She stood slowly, took the plaque from my hand as if afraid it might vanish. I didn't stay to see where they put it. I simply turned, walked back through the foyer, and stepped out into the light. That night, I lit a candle on my kitchen table. Not for anyone else, just for presence. I sat beside the flicker and whispered to no one in particular. Not to be seen by them, just to see myself again. Then I placed one more thing in my purse, a blank sympathy card, plain white, no words inside. The next morning, I walked to the church again. No one noticed me. I left the card on the front desk. No envelope, no note, just the card, an offering, a reversal. To the ones who thought I was gone, thank you for reminding me I wasn't. I wrote one last line on the back, in my own handwriting. Still here. The weather turned warm again, not in a loud way, just a slow settling, like something returning that had always known the way back. I opened the window for the first time in weeks. The breeze carried in a softness I didn't name, but I let it in anyway. On the table, the candle I'd lit 2 nights before had burned itself down. Its wick curled and blackened, but I didn't move it. Some things deserve to remain where they last gave light. I walked again, nowhere special, just to walk. Past the corner store, past the church steps. A little girl sat cross-legged on the sidewalk, arranging flowers into a lopsided heart. She looked up. Our eyes met. No fear, no pity, just quiet curiosity. Like she saw me. I nodded. She didn't smile, but her fingers paused, and that was enough. At home, I brewed tea in the blue-rimmed mug I used to save for guests. Only 1 cup, but this time, it felt full. I pulled out the sympathy card from the drawer, held it. The paper was still smooth, the ink still crisp, but it no longer had weight. I turned it over and placed it into the small wooden box I kept near the bed. Inside was Ellie's drawing, faded now, corners bent. Stick figures under a purple sun, one labeled Grandma. I pressed the card beside it. Not to bury, just to rest them together. What was once used to erase me now lay beside what had once made me most seen. Later that evening, the sun spilled across the floor in warm ribbons. I didn't rush to close the curtain. I let the light reach me. For the first time in a long while, I didn't need to be remembered. I just needed to be still quiet, still small, but here, and finally, enough. Some silences aren't peaceful. Some are planted, watered with doubt, grown into something that makes you believe you vanished. If you've ever felt like that, like you were erased, not because you faded, but because someone needed you gone, you're not alone. I was never gone. I was just waiting for someone to ask where I'd gone. And if no one ever asks, let this space hold your name too. If your truth has nowhere to go, you can leave it here, quietly. We don't need to shout to be remembered. The email is just below, sweetheart.